Hey guys, welcome back. It's Navigating Neva with Neva, Nicole, and Wes King. This is episode 2 on series 2, Lifeguarding Prerequisites. Can you really swim?
We're going to find out real fast, won't we?
We will. Sink or swim test, right?
Exactly. Happy to be back. Thanks for having us again and excited to dive into this, pun intended.
For sure. So this week, I've got you guys a wonderful slideshow to go with our conversation. Less words, more photos. And so we are talking about the prerequisites that we entered into last week. So we told everybody what they were very briefly. So we want to dive deeper this week to let everybody know what's in store. So
I think that's where everybody kind of already gets nervous, right? Water, hopping in my swimsuit. I'm not used to being in 78-degree lap pool water. I'm around a crowd of people. And it's kind of where people start to have that mental block and forget that they grew up swimming. They didn't grow up competitive swimming. They grew up around water. They've experienced around water. So I think our goal is to kind of break down some of those ideas and say, this is the reality. These are the ways to achieve the class. These are the prerequisites, but also here's how to get through them. Here's how to achieve some of those challenges that maybe you or your staff or your communities had around the prerequisites.
right, because even though it's just swimming, it's a test. So I think sometimes we get test
Right?
anxiety. So we want
Right.
to know what's coming.
Quote unquote bad test takers. Um, if you were just playing with your friends, playing water volleyball or just swimming around with your family, you would probably swim up and down the pool, a lap or a link, which we'll talk about. You'd probably have your face up. You'd probably be vertical. You'd probably do a lot of the things, but your heart rate would be down and you would be worried about the person underwater. So anyway, to your point, Nicole, yeah, let's get into it.
All right. Well, so last week we talked about all the agencies that we can get our lifeguard certification through, and a lot of them are pretty similar. So I've got our color coded chart up, and we were just going to look at what everybody has. So I'll start with the YMCA of the USA. Their prereq, and you guys can always let us know if we're wrong, but this is from the internet, is that we're going to swim 100 yards, and it can be front crawl or breaststroke. They're going to tread water for 1 minute and retrieve a brick from deep water.
Sounds simple as we can be, right? We're going to define the word swim, tread, brick. You would think it'd be pretty simple, but I love that there's already nuances as we move to the next one.
Yes. So for our American Red Cross, and as I mentioned last week, these are the top standards. So American Red Cross goes as far as waterfront. So the swim 550 comes from your waterfront certification. You have to swim a 550 continuously, tread water for 2 minutes using only your legs, and complete a timed event within a minute and 40 seconds.
So a lot of the same characteristics, but now we've added some adjectives. This is like playing what's the game with my son where you've got to fill all the letters out. Oh my God, categories. We've added minutes. We've added continuously. We've added legs only. Keep going. How to make the sentence longer?
Right. It seems like it's getting harder. So
Yeah, right.
So our star guard is we're going to swim 300 yards continuously, tread for 2 minutes using your legs only, same as before, retrieve a 10-pound brick from 10 feet of water.
So now we've started to measure our depth of pool, but we're swimming a shorter distance. Okay, I feel like this is a John Madden football player. You're going to send your receiver left, cut back. Okay, keep going. All right, here we go. Next
So
one.
our Lifeguarding of America is the same. They're coming in with a 300-yard swim, also continuous, a 2-minute tread, again with legs only. We're going to talk about that later as why this keep
Yep, legs only is here again. Yep.
yeah. And then we're going to retrieve also a 10-pound brick, and once again at a depth of 10 feet.
And so far we've got three different colors. We've got the same 10-pound brick, so that stays consistent. One of the things I talk to our lifeguards a lot about in our emergencies when we're prepping our mind is what's always the same. Our fanny packs are always the same. Our rescue tubes are, well, in this case, our 10-pound brick always is the same. Our at least 100 yards is always the same. So there's some commonalities here too that we can start to prepare our audience for.
Yep. And then Lifeguarding of America and Lifeguard Pro are identical. They seem to be exactly the same. Well, I think Starguard was the same. We're going back to that 300-yard continuous swim, a 2-minute tread using only your legs, and then retrieve the 10-pound brick from 10 feet of water.
There we go. There's that depth marker again.
So here's the hard one, or the new one, the one up in our red color coding. So USLA is swim a 500-meter continuous, tread for 2 minutes using legs only, and complete a timed event within 1 minute and 30 seconds.
That's pushing. Those are our Coast Guard. That's a lot of our beach guards. Again, different type of preparation, different type of age requirement too, if I'm not mistaken. I know I'm old and I've spent too many years in the sun and the chlorine, but that's our only 18 and above. Is that correct, Nicole?
So you are, well, you're very correct. So USLA is 16 and above, US Coast Guard is 18 and above, but they both have the same prereqs.
Right, right. So again, as you think about what organization you're with, as you're thinking about even using this to marketing to your potential audience, you hear a lot of these nuances that allow you to represent or present your your potential swimmers and your potential lifeguards, your workforce, to say this is how we can get through this test. Here, let's get to some more specifics.
For sure. So the next one I bring up is not that the American Red Cross is the most common across the United States, but I can only speak on behalf of Red Cross. So I have pulled for you guys our we did say it's a 550, and that's for waterfront. So what we're going to dive deeper into is the two most common, which is lifeguarding, a pool lifeguard for Red Cross, and shallow water lifeguards for Red Cross, both at a pool. So I'm just going to read to you our swim, which is a new one. They like to revise and update their information a lot. So this is a revision or revised 2024. We're going to swim a 150 using the front crawl or the breaststroke or a combination of both. We just need you to get from point A to point B. And you cannot swim on your back during this portion. You also can use goggles during the swim. It goes right into a tread, which is new, and then you're going to finish your swim with a 50-yard.
And Nicole, if I swam my 150 and I needed to take a break, I needed to hop out, I needed to sit on the side, I needed to catch my breath. Do I get to keep going, or would I have to start? How would that work? Because again, walk me through that.
Right. I hear you. So a lot of people do need a break, or they need to rest, or they're trying to keep up with their brother who's in college and they're not at that level. So it's not a timed swim. So you want to go as slow as you can to keep your pace, because you can't
Bingo.
stop. If you stop, you do have to start over.
Thank you. And it was not a trick question. I've experienced that in my life, and I've certified a good chunk of nearly 3,000 guards. The point is, you get in, you get excited. That cold water hits. You feel a time in your head because you've been in class and you hear the word lifeguarding and you're thinking of the victim in the water. You're thinking of your instructor, or you're thinking of your classmate. And all of a sudden, you're gassed at wall 2 and you're red faced and your arms are lactic acid at wall 4. And Nicole, you're so right. It's not timed. This is not the place to burn your body on. This is the place to make sure your head is in a good place, both mentally and physically, right? Head above water.
Right.
And using my goggles and getting an understanding of how your body moves in the water, which we're going to talk to in a minute. So again, it's a great understanding of Nicole about how to use that 150 to your advantage for how you operate in the water.
Yeah, we're going to slow it down and we're going to pace
Slow it down.
We're competitive by nature, and we want to be
right.
That cute guy or a friend or whoever. We want to be the best in the class.
Want to look good in my new swimsuit for sure.
Yeah, want to impress the instructor.
Yeah. 100%.
All of those are true.
Right. Roger Clemens, famous baseball player Roger Clemens, was on spring training baseball today, and he literally talks to minor league baseball players, and they tell him, well, Rocket, when you were watching me, I zapped up my ball. I tried to throw harder. He's like, you can't do it. They just, same example here today. I was trying to impress my instructor, just like you said. And to that point, let's talk about that distance, Nicole. I think this is a great visual on understanding how to discuss what you actually have to achieve in the pool, whether you're marketing to a new lifeguard, you're trying to teach somebody to cross over into the lifeguarding world, or you're just trying to get better at understanding it yourself. Great. Keep going.
I'm glad you mentioned the screen. We will give this out to who can get the still images from the YouTube video.
Anybody who has stayed along with us to learn about the JOT form, if you would do the kind enough to give us your survey, give us your information, tell us what you think about, what you want to hear about, fill out a JOT form, no charge, no requirements of any kind, and you'll get all this information, still form and more for free.
Yes, and I know those.
And some eligible prizes too. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have some prizes coming up, but this is a beautiful form for those of you on audio that can't see it. It's a really good piece that you can put up in the office or just have for training purposes or to explain stuff to people that are coming to take classes or for lap swimmers.
I did it with my son today. He's a sixth grader and he was talking about swimming laps and lifeguarding tests. And he goes, well, it's back and forth, right? And I said, it's wall touches. 2 wall touches is 1 lap. Oh, I get it now. Maybe it's only a 20-yard pool, right? My daughter is in second grade. She got the math pretty quickly. And this is an easy way to explain. Again, don't panic. You still have 4 more wall touches, buddy. Slow down,
AC,
right?
AC,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
So, for those of you that are not on our YouTube, this is an image of a 25-yard pool, and we're discussing the difference between laps and links.
Hmm.
And if that means nothing to you, it's okay. It meant nothing to me for a long time. I just lived in the lap world. I didn't know there was a link. So if you're wondering what we're talking about, a link is if you just go from wall to wall. So the wall touches Wes is talking about. The lap is just like a lap or a track lap. You're going to go from start back to start. So you're going to end
Right.
again at the start.
It's the opposite of the fun run in the office where they did the 5K and it just ended at one spot and they didn't come all the way around. This is the opposite where it actually comes all the way back full circle as a full lap.
Exactly.
Back to the beginning.
So
So
for those of you who are not lap swimmers and you're looking at that pool and you want to know how many times you have to go back and forth wall to wall, your swim test for the Red Cross for the 150, it's going to be 6 links or 3 laps. So you can
yeah,
count whatever you
wall
want.
touch, wall touch, wall touch. And again, when we're doing this for fun, when we're just messing around, most people probably swim that in a half hour or 20 minutes with their family or friends. No one's saying you should do the test for a half hour, but if you have that same mentality, you can get through it a lot easier than hopping in, feeling 78-degree water, panicking with your goggles, and all of a sudden you're out of breath.
Right, because don't forget, you do get to wear your goggles, and you can slow
Right.
down and pace yourself. Not look at the person you're trying to compete with. Look down where you're going, and pace yourself.
Not worry about your contacts. Is a lifelong contact wearer who lost many of them in many of 10 feet of pools because you couldn't wear goggles.
Right.
I can tell you it's a different story now.
I concur with that. I keep a pair of goggle or lenses in my bag because
Right.
you're gonna lose them.
I keep an optometry set, but yes.
All right, so this is the timed event. So there is a timed event, and I think a lot of people get confused because they mesh those two together. But the timed event is separate from your swim. And your timed event is 1 minute and 40 seconds. And in that 1 minute and 40 seconds, you do not get to wear your goggles. You enter the water, you swim down 20 yards, ascend to the bottom of the pool. And for the Red Cross, it's 7 to 10 feet. It can be 10 feet. And the only reason they say that is not every facility, especially in the
Bingo.
South, gets that depth. But you do have to meet a minimum of 7 feet. You can't be less than 7 feet. You're going to get that 7-pound object and you're going to return to the surface. You're going to swim on your back, holding the object, and it doesn't have to be out of the water. It just has to be at the surface, all the way back to the wall where you exit the pool. So you've got to climb out. There's no ladder, no stairs. You have to physically climb out of the pool, and then your time is done.
Another great visual and another great summary. And I think you hit a few marks, right? How do we define swim, right? This is not Michael Phelps. This is not competitive swimming for a time. I mean, yes, for a time, but we're not monitoring you as a butterfly competitive swimmer that you hit all your marks. We're not, no. What we're saying is, did you get the brick? Did the brick stay above water? Did you stay in constant motion? There are specific aspects that if you, as a lifeguard participant, lifeguard instructor, or audience member listening to this, can look for beyond the 1 minute and 40 seconds. right? And using those to your advantage when you're taking the test of my head has to stay up, the brick has to stay up. If you saw me visually, you would see my hands doing the motions. Don't let my rear end sink, et cetera, et cetera, so that you're not panicking about the things that could go wrong if you catch some water in your mouth or if your feet dip, so that you can stay on pace with it, because there's a lot that goes on in that minute 40 seconds. So you've got to have your mind in a good place.
Right. And for those that are going to fill out our job form, this is another image.
Oh, yes. Keep going. Nicole, you mentioned I hit the word swim. We talk about on our back, we talk about that brick. Well, swimming is my arms and my legs and my feet and breathing. This is a different type of swimming, right? This is swimming to get to an end to get out of the pool. Can I use any stroke I want? Can I just keep the brick above water? How do I get that brick in my body back to the wall in a good kick, in a good way?
Right. So I think the best way to describe these both is there's an objective on each mission. So getting to the brick, you are on your face or your face down, and you're just getting down there as quick as you can. But they are telling you you only have the choice. You can do the front crawl or the freestyle, but it's not a swim meet where you're going to get disqualified. We just need you.
There you go. You're saying it better than I am. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're prone position, and you want to get to the meet the objective, get to the brick or the
Yeah.
person, and get back. On the way back, it's not tricky. I think there's just a lot of stuff that causes confusion
There
sometimes.
you
So
go.
the most important thing is we want our face out of the water. Our safety comes first. Can you breathe? And
Yep.
then that brick can be heavy, especially when we've got 15-year-old teens that haven't been conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
or
Or
older
felt that
people.
weight. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I get older people all the time that are like, "Hey, I need to come take the class, but I can't swim." And I'm like, "Okay, I mean, we'll get you certified, but you got to meet all the objectives."
Yeah.
So you don't have to carry the brick out of the water, but the brick is at the surface, just like your face is out of the water. You want that out of the water, but it doesn't have to be above the water, which makes a really big difference on that swim. But you are on your back.
Great point. When I was in driver's ed, I used to have my driver's ed teacher would put a paper clip on the dashboard. If the paper clip slid side to side, you failed. I had a lifeguard instructor that would put pennies and change on the top tip of that brick. And
Yep.
if it stayed above, you won. The only way it was going to go down is if water got on it. But that brick was thick enough and that rubber was thick enough that that change would stay on there. And that's all I had to do. If my head stayed up. Now, to your point, if you're a very strong, super muscular guy that like I am, everybody knows me, you're going to sink, and they're going to sink fast. So you have to understand what it's like to just be in that position without the 10-pound weight. If your body weight is different and maybe you're more of the HR is not listening of the Dolly Parton world, or maybe your body is a different size, you're going to float. You better know how your body floats with your tushy up in there and your toes up in there and your neck back, and you got some water in your mouth. You
Right.
might have great buoyancy, but you reacted differently. So both very unique situations that people want to put themselves in before they go down and grab that brick. How do you respond when water goes in your mouth? Punch in the face, Mike Tyson. What's the phrase?
Well, I think what you said, respond, how are you going to respond before the brick goes down? But how are you going to train before you get to the class? And I
Yeah.
think you guys could take your goggles. We don't want you to grab a lifeguard brick without
Yeah. Take a ring,
goggles.
a kid's ring buoy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and go get them. And then this back swimming that you're mentioning, we don't need a brick. We can just hold a kickboard to feel
Yep.
what is adequate for us before we take that lifeguard test with a lifeguard instructor. So you can practice on your own, so that you know what's coming, but now you know what's coming.
Yeah. And I know we won't spend a lot of time on this, but I know you've got some great visuals, Nicole, on the choice. Go into it with an understanding of what kind of kick you're going to do and what kind of body movement you're going to have so that you don't panic in the middle of it. We'll get to that in a minute, but
That's
yeah.
right. We do have some great video or images on that. So I want to iterate that there is a second test for American Red Cross, and this just is in existence because so many pools are shallow and they don't go to the 10 feet, the 15 feet. They don't even go to the 7 feet. They don't even go to 6 feet. So we've got all of these shallow water pools. So the American Red Cross has a shallow water lifeguard certificate. And I wanted to talk about the difference, and this is where we're going to get into the swim. So I find this test to be a little bit more challenging because they've cut the time in half. So before we had a minute 40, and now we have 50 seconds to do the same test. Now we're not going to a depth of the same depth, but it's the same test outside of that. You're going to swim down
Distance wise. Yeah.
Yep. And then you're going to submerge, not as deep. You're going to submerge 4 to 7 feet because the pool's a shallow water pool. Get that same 10-pound brick and return to the wall. The problem is on these shallow water pools, they're giving you the option to walk because, hey, if you're tall, your legs are going to be probably dragging on the ground already anyway.
Get that explosion. Use those football drills. Get that explosion off the ground. Those high knee drills.
Yes.
Walking backwards. And I'm not being. I mean, I'm being semi-sarcastic. But if you're over 6'1", 6'2", and you're in a shallow pool,
It's hard.
it is not easy. But if you can do it again, know your body. We're going to get in that in just a second. If that's a quicker way for you to explode back through that water and keep the brick up because your height allows you to, it says you can.
Do it.
Opposite, if you're not prepared for it, to Nicole's point, and your legs are dragging, you haven't practiced it, you're really going to struggle because your body's not used to having that 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" body so low to the water with the brick there.
Yeah, not joking, but I mean, if you're tall, you might want to get a lifeguard certificate and not a shallow water.
Right. It's a different feel. Yeah.
All right. So another great image we have for those that are doing the jot form, it's the picture, and we're going to swim back the 20 yards. We don't get a cinder block, and I just threw that in there because some of these little towns give you a cinder block. But that's the same distance, and you could walk. So you have two options. When you're on your back, we can do the flutter kick, which everybody should be familiar with. That's when we're doing our front crawl. But you also have the whip kick, which I put a picture of it. And the whip kick is, I don't think this is actually the whip kick. I think this is the inverted breaststroke kick. But you have some options when you're on your back, and we don't care. We just want you to get back to the wall. But you are going to do a symmetrical or an alternating kick on the return.
And I think that's key is, and I know, Nicole, when we were prepping for this, you had talked about teaching for the last 2 or 3 years that you've seen some people really struggle with the time, but you've never stopped, called anybody out because their kick form wasn't perfect. They may have not met the time and have to redo it,
right?
But maybe that's because they could have been more efficient with their kick. They didn't get kicked out of the Olympics from it, but they went back and forth, or they pushed off the bottom, or they didn't have a good idea of how to stay consistent with it.
Well, and because the water is so shallow, you have the ability to hop, jump, swim.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you still got to get the objective met, which is to get back to that wall
with that brick.
Yeah, with the brick. Yeah, you need the brick with you.
Yeah, and I think here, and I, not to spend an hour on body mechanics because I'm not the right person for it with 5 knee surgeries and a bed. But if you start to change your routine in these 50 seconds and only focus on your head and only focus on the brick, your legs will fall apart. Your mechanics will fall apart. Your core will fall apart, no matter how strong or good of a swimmer you are, because sliding on the bottom of the pool, because finding the black line, finding the lanes above you, where are you in that space? This is an unfamiliar territory in doing this exercise. So again, looking at these visuals and understanding how your body moves in this water related to this 50-second task is vital, more than ever, I would say.
Yes. The next slide. So for everybody not on the video with us, we've got the back crawl and the symmetrical stroke. And as Wes mentioned, you can use them all. So if you're practicing or you're training or you're getting ready for your test, this visual is just showing you your 2 options on the back, the ways that we swim. But remember, when we're swimming, we don't have our arms because we're holding a brick to have a really proficient kick. And we don't care which kick you do. It just needs to be proficient.
To get you 49.5 seconds, it's as long as you're kicking and moving and you beat the clock, we can fix your kick later. What we can't fix is your inability to meet all the other measures.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is just an extra bonus image you get, but anybody can steal this off Google. If you're not familiar with this kick, this is a good illustration of what it looks like. And it seems to be a pretty effective kick, especially when you're holding a person.
Yeah, the bigger and stronger you are, the more pressure and power you need with each kick so that you don't have to do a lot of them. And those are good for the big, strong, athletic body types. That big, long, strong, powerful whip keeps you afloat rather than that small, tiny flutter kick trying to use your big body.
Right. Which brings us into a fun fact. The side stroke is not part of our test. And I find that interesting because the side stroke is a lot of what we do in our rescues.
As soon as you get that tube going,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting, right? But
It,
going back to I don't say how do I pass the test, but I was behind the curtain. Anybody I work with hears me say that. For anybody listening, how do I pass the test? You use a version of the side stroke and bring your body at a paced, consistent level, and just don't do the side stroke. You just kick and swim at a pace, which is what the side stroke is.
right. So that brings us to our next one. What I'm sure everybody's asking is why are we doing all these ridiculous, silly tests? Why is this necessary? Why do we need it? And it really all boils down to our safety, right?
You got it. I say this in a lot of my slides, my program Rookie and Rescues, which we'll talk about, and you can win for free if you do the jot form. But there's a phrase that Mike Tyson says, and everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And the punch in the face could be the cold water, could be the victim, could be your lack of breath, could be anything. And that's why we do this, Nicole, is so that it becomes part of our routine. It becomes so monotonous with our daily lives that it is unbreakable in our pattern no matter what we face when we jump in and we swim and we respond.
Right. So, the image on here is a guy rescuing a guy. So if you wonder why we have all these crazy tests, since we don't know what we're going to do when we get punched in the face, if we practice enough,
That
hopefully
we're prepared.
that's right. We'll just respond without the shock. And that also brings us to our next image is our training. Once you're done, you're not done. I mean, I know our beach lifeguards, they do training every morning for an hour before they open at the beach.
Running in that sand is no joke. There's some heavy weights that come to that.
Yeah, and I mean, the beach is a real serious job, unlike the pool where I can see everything and I know my depth all the time and I know my distance and we can do relays and all kinds of practice and training. The beach is a little bit more.
We know that 104-year-old Marge is going to show up and she's not going to be able to hear us and she's going to use a side rail and she's going right. I'm not knocking her. We know that's going to happen. The beach, we don't know which way the waves are going to go tonight, and that doesn't mean our training has to disintegrate though, right? To your point, Nicole, you still have to stay vigilant with your response mechanisms, with your how your body's going to respond. What would Marge do if you weren't there? Blah 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 blah. So the training never goes away. It's just a matter of how you incorporate it based on your location and the requirements that you have.
Yeah, and to that point, most lifeguard positions have in-service training on a monthly basis to keep you
Or
fresh
more.
skills. Yeah. So hopefully you're getting training with your teamwork or with your teammates and you guys are practicing at your facility. And I emphasize those because a lot of people go elsewhere to get training and they're not training where they're going to work, which is why in-service plays such an important key role.
And not only that, and again, less about me, but anybody else, I don't teach anymore. One of the reasons my body doesn't take it, but two is I pride myself on doing what you just said is you got certified in this property, but you're working in that property. Let's transition those skills or your instructor information, et cetera, to where you are to make it as most effective as possible. And if you've stayed with us this long, you've heard that tidbit, which gives you another opportunity to guess what? Enter the jot form and guess what? Earn some free prizes and some consulting information and materials, and then some.
Yeah. So we do have a job form. I'm going to post it on our podcast page today, and you can find it on Navigating Neva's Facebook page and then also on the website. But we're going to have a giveaway next week. Wes has mentioned his form a few times, which if you don't want just the piece of paper, because what good is that? You can also get Wes to give the presentation, not for our giveaway, but if you're tempted and you want to hear him talk some more, he definitely has that service available for you
Who wouldn't
guys.
want that?
Right. And our job form is really just to let us know who's out there, who's listening, and what you guys want, or if you want to hear
Exactly.
more in different things. But next week, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about guarding. Like you're like, where now that I'm certified, where do I go? Who's going to hire me? Who wants me now that I'm a certified lifeguard?
From that to actually getting in a chair and putting your feet in there with the whistle in the mouth and the suntan on your nose and the visor and working in Caddyshack's pool and more. So looking forward to next week, and thanks again, everybody.
All right. See you. Take care. Come back.
Bye bye, guys.